9:05. Happy Friday. It's Feature Friday segment. Become one of my favorite things to do here on KCMO. Kick back, find somebody who's mildly interesting, and have them join us in studio on a Friday from 9 to 9:30. And McGraw Millhaven, KTRS in St. Louis, is here because he wanted to watch some professional football in Kansas City. How'd it go last night, my man?
Well, first of all, you should stop lying to your audience. This was your wife's idea, okay? Not your idea. That's one.
Well, that's true.
Yes,
that's true.
So it caught you in a lie 30 seconds into the segment.
That is true. She said, hey, you should have McGraw on for the Friday segment.
Yes.
Wait, but I didn't lie. I didn't say this was my idea. I just said that you're here.
He kind of alluded to the fact that it was his idea.
Now, alluding versus flat out lying are two very different things.
Okay, when are you running for governor?
Oh, gosh.
No, we kick off of the NFL season.
Yes.
And I had an opportunity to get some tickets. And so we made the trek across the state. Highway 70 looking very good. They're working on it past Kingdom City. I guess that would be, west of Kingdom City. Mm-hmm. And got in the tailgate. Hats off to the people at, I guess, do you still call it Arrowhead Stadium?
Yeah, yeah. Well, GEHA Field at Arrowhead. Arrowhead Stadium.
Couldn't have been any nicer. Tailgated a little bit. Walked into the stadium, sat in the suite, hung out with Taylor Swift. It was a fun night.
And we stopped by in the second half, and Taylor was a couple of suites over. She kept waving at you. I don't know what that was all about.
Well, I mean, we go back, Swifty and I. So I just, a little tip of the cap. I'll talk to you later, and we go from there.
I saw her walking out with Travis. I said, McGraw's somewhere lurking in the shadows.
Well, I said, but really, a denim for a Chiefs game? I don't know if that's going to play. But she doesn't listen to me.
It worked out okay, though. So
I will say this, though.
Yes.
So, this Taylor Swift thing is really kind of hilarious. So when it all blew up last year, how many times did you hear, usually guys, who cares? Wait, I don't want to watch it on TV. Right? Everyone, who cares? I'm so sick of this. Who cares? Right? I'm watching the game. I don't care about Taylor Swift. Okay, right? So this was all second half of last season.
Yep.
So you get in this suite at the stadium last night, and there were 3 guys who were right out of Central Casting who were Chiefs fans, right? Heavyset guys. One was bald. One had a goatee. The other one had a full beard.
Yeah.
And they know all the stats and all the this and all the that, right? The classic guy who would say, I don't really care about Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
The minute somebody in the suite said, I think that's Taylor Swift, these 3 guys jumped up, pulled out their phone. Oh, wait a minute. Where is she? Where is she? Where is she? All they want, every guy in every suite all wanted to take a look at Taylor Swift last night.
That is so funny. And you're right, though. It was such BS when people were taking that approach last year, as if guys weren't also into it like women were. It was a huge win for the NFL. It still is.
It was a pop culture moment. I get all these girls now watching football, and it's so stupid. What happened to football? Come on, you liberal. And I'm like, I don't know if that makes me a liberal because I don't mind. I'm eating. I'm watching the game, eating my bonbons. Do I care that they cut to her for 2 seconds after a catch?
What else are you going to stare at? Guys slapping each other's asses during the game?
I know. So it was really quite funny that the macho-ness sort of all faded away as soon as you walked in the door.
It did. So take me through right now in St. Louis. You guys don't have an NFL team. There's a lot going on.
That's the second reference, by the way, in 5 minutes.
Is that the second?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to. All right, I'll get to 6 by the end of the segment here. How's that been? Like, what's the city like without an NFL team? Just having the Cardinals. How's it different? How's it the same?
It was a bad fit. If you take the 25 years the Rams are in St. Louis, it was a bad fit from the word go. They went cheap on the stadium. They never should have let the football Cardinals go. How many times in the NFL has a team let the team go because they didn't want to build them a stadium, and then they end up building a stadium for a team to come? So why don't you just build, right? When the Browns left Cleveland, you didn't want to build a stadium for the Browns, but you built a stadium for a new team that was going to be called the Browns, right? Mm-hmm. Baltimore wouldn't build a stadium for the Colts, but they built a stadium for the Ravens, right? Mm-hmm. So it didn't make any sense. So they should have kept the Cardinals. And then they went cheap with the new stadium. If you remember, they didn't even have a football team. They built a stadium for a team hoping to get a team. So the Rams come. It was a bad fit. The stadium was on the cheap. with all due respect, they was nice enough. They had a couple of nice runs, right? Went to the Super Bowl, won a Super Bowl. But Stan Kroenke had no intention of ever wanting to keep the Rams in St. Louis. His goal was to bring them back to L.A. On the way out the door, he kicked sand. He told the NFL the reason why we can't stay here is because this is a third world city and there's too much crime and it's never going to be anything. And so he really rubbed it in. And the rub in St. Louis is that the Hunts here voted in favor of the move. And so there's a lot of bad blood. A lot of people are saying, oh, why don't you just become Chiefs fans?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in St. Louis who will never forgive the Kansas City Chiefs for voting to allow the Rams to move from St. Louis back to L.A.
So who have they embraced?
Well, clearly the Jets. It's a huge.
You've convinced two friends to become Jets fans in St. Louis.
It's a huge enclave of Jet fans. I think you probably find a couple of Bears fans.
Okay,
but they've been so bad for so long. You do find a lot of Kansas City fans.
You do.
There's a lot of bandwagon fans.
Yeah.
There were some people who grew up with the Chiefs who like the Chiefs. There's one guy I know who's still a Rams fan.
Wow.
And he says, I grew up with the Rams. I'm a Rams fan. So I'm like, wow, you really have got some issues. Nashville doesn't really cut it.
I was wondering about the Titans.
Yeah, no. There's probably Chicago. I know the Chiefs are trying to sort of make inroads. And because this is such a run for the Chiefs, there's a lot of, action there. But it's sort of a wilderness. It's sort of, it's going to become a hodgepodge of, Jets and Giants, and I'm a Dolphins fan. I'm a I'm a Ravens fan. I'm a Seattle fan. It's just sort of who you like and who you want to watch.
McGraw Millhaven is here, KTRS in St. Louis. So the connection, one of the many between myself and McGraw, is that his niece is my wife's best friend from high school. So just connect those dots for a second.
My niece,
his niece,
Samantha Carr.
Yes.
Who just had her second baby.
Boy.
Went to her high school graduation in the early 2000s.
2005.
2005.
It would have been.
And Samantha's uncle is coming, and he's in radio.
Yes.
And one of her friends says, oh, what radio are you in? And I think my sister said, oh, he's in AM radio. And they said, AM radio? AM radio. And then she grows up and marries a guy who works on AM radio.
Hey, we're on the FM dial now. Let's go. 95.7 FM. Oh, my goodness. That is funny, though. And then the first time McGraw and I met, I asked him this last night, and I screwed it up. I should have saved it for today. He didn't realize we met 15 years ago in East Hampton, New York. His family was renting a house. You were out here doing the show in St. Louis. You went back east. You're from Long Island originally. You're visiting your family. I'm with Kate. We had just started dating the year prior. So we're going to see you guys because, of course, your niece and my wife are best friends.
They're in town. Hey, stop by the house.
Stop by the house kind of a deal.
Yeah.
So at that point, I realized the summer of 2009, I was just kind of getting the radio itch, and I was going to start a radio internship that fall with ESPN in Philadelphia. And they're like, hey, this guy's a big star out in St. Louis. He's a radio guy, blah, blah, blah. So we go to the house.
That part's actually true.
Yes, that is true. And I've been telling a lot of truths here the last 10 minutes. And you're hanging out on the couch. I don't know if you had sunglasses on. I don't know if you were tired, if you were hungover. You were nice enough, but you weren't Mr. Friendly. I remember that much. Yeah.
Not Mr. Friendly.
Should that be a surprise?
That's a misnomer. What am I going to do? Hey, hi, nice to see you. What am I going to do? I mean,
no, it was
Hey, do you want
fine.
to go grab a soda? You're my niece's girlfriend's boyfriend. What am I going to do? Hey, how you doing? Do you want to get into radio? Let me tell you how to cut a commercial.
No. It was pleasant. I was pleasant.
I wasn't like, get out of here, kid.
No. Not you weren't.
Okay.
You weren't mean.
Right.
You just,
I didn't like give you a nod and like.
No. Hey, how are you?
Yeah.
It was one of those.
Was it? Hey, what's up?
But here's the thing. I just figure, and this is one thing people in radio oftentimes are introverts.
Yes.
And when you're not in it, you assume everyone's an extrovert.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, right. Yeah.
But many are not.
Well, no, that's again, people are like, oh, you're very different on the radio. Well, no, I'm not. This is just a portion of me on the radio. But when you're off the radio, you just sort of sit in the corner and just sort of watch the world go by. And there's two, it's like actors and actresses, right? I mean, you see them on stage and you think, oh, that's who they are. But there's a whole other world to them off the stage. And we talk for a living, and so there's a certain amount of downtime you have to have.
Yes.
And you're just meeting somebody for the first time. Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want me to go out and get a song and dance? Or, I mean,
I'm not mad about it.
No, I know. But it's just interesting when, I met him. He was just sort of like, hey, how are you?
Just a regular guy.
Yeah. He didn't do any bits. Well, I'm not working. I'm sitting on a couch in the Hamptons. What do you want me to do?
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. McGraw Millhaven, mornings on KTRS over in St. Louis. Joining us on 95.7 FM KCMO. McGraw Millhaven is here, KTRS on KCMO Talk Radio for our Feature Friday segment. All right, so you grow up in Long Island. You go to the University of Nebraska. You play baseball at the University of Nebraska. I learned last night that you were getting looks from scouts. So could you have gone pro?
There was a time when the Angels, Al Goldis is a name that some Kansas City people might remember. He was the scout who was very tied to Bo Jackson. Al Goldis with the Angels at the time. And he was high on Bo Jackson. And at that point, he had scouted me. And there was talk about drafting me or going to college. And I wanted to go to college. And then so they ended up knowing some people in Nebraska. And one thing led to another, and that's how I ended up in the Midwest.
So a Long Island guy in Lincoln, Nebraska in, the early 90s? What's that
it would
like?
have been, graduated high school in 1985, so it was 86 through 90.
86 through 90.
Yeah.
All right, so what's that like for a Long Island guy showing up in Lincoln, Nebraska in 1986?
Well, let me just mention, go Big Red.
Yes.
Big game this weekend. That's where we're headed now.
You go to Colorado game.
We got the tailgate in tow. We're leaving here. We're heading straight to Lincoln.
That's going to be a good time.
So on my recruiting trip, I met Bob Devaney. And Husker fans out there know the legendary Bob Devaney. And they sit me down in his office, and hi, how are you? And when I was getting on the plane, they said, they're going to introduce you to somebody named Bob Devaney. He's a big deal. So, I was like, okay, fine. So they bring me in. Bob Devaney's there, and he says to me, we're chatting, and I said, look, I got to be honest with you. I said, when you guys were playing Syracuse back in 83 or 84, Nebraska was ranked number 1 in the country. Syracuse upsets them. It was a huge upset. And I said, hey, I don't mean to offend you, but I was rooting for Syracuse in the game. He says, look, you're from New York. I get it.
Yeah.
He says, but you're coming to Lincoln, and once a Husker, always a Husker. And I was like, let me now try this one. I said, well, if I'm also being honest, I was also kind of rooting for Miami in the Orange Bowl.
That's a no-go.
The 31-30, you know. And he went from this jovial man to like shut it all down and took out his pen and looked me in the eye and said, we will have none of that around here.
Oh, that's great.
So, it was, it took a little adjustment, but, Nebraska was great to me. The people, the university, the coaches, the players, the people I met, the things I've done, the state. It's a wonderful, wonderful state, and they embraced me and welcomed me home, so it'll always be home for me.
So you've been in St. Louis radio for, 25 years, more or less?
Since 1999, so 25 years, 26 years.
How does that happen? How do you get into the business? How do you end up there?
Well, so here's my how I got into the business. I grew up with a stutter. I have a stuttering problem, and I've always stuttered. And when I was in high school, Fordham University had this before Sports Talk. They did this Friday night, Saturday night sports rap show. And it was WFUV, and it was put on by college students. And one of the college students was Michael Kay.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Who's now the voice of the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
And so from 10 to 2, you would call up, and there would be a, Mr. Michigan, a Mr., Tar Heel, a Mr. Yankee, a Mr. Met. And these callers would call up and talk about the week's events. And I thought this was the greatest thing in the world. So I tried calling up one night, And as a stutterer, one of the hardest things to say is your own name. So they would say, hey, what's your name? And I would say, and I couldn't get my name out, for the producer, for the screener. So I would hang up and I wouldn't call and I would drive myself crazy because I couldn't. And then finally I just said, you know what? Stop driving yourself crazy. Just enjoy the show and just forget about trying to call in. So I go to college and I'm a history major and a poli-sci major. And lo and behold, it's mid-90s and my college roommate says to me, I've known you for 10 years now. The radio station's right there. Go get a job. That's all you've ever wanted to do. So I walk across the street, KFAB radio. They hire me to change tapes at midnight on a Saturday night. And I'm changing tapes, and I'm cleaning the waste paper baskets and, doing all the grunt work and making $6 an hour and loving every second of it. So one day, the traffic guy doesn't show up, and they say, hey, go get in the station vehicle and go drive around and call back traffic. So, okay, fine. I get in the car. I'm driving around. They say, hey, I'm McGraw Millhaven. What's it looking like out there? Well, I'm out here on East, and I can't say eastbound Interstate 80. And so East. Okay, back to you guys in the studio. There's a long pause on the other end, like, oh my goodness.
What was that?
Right. I'd never talked on the radio because I was just changing tapes and cleaning, toilets. So I'm in the van. I'm like, okay, I can't say eastbound Interstate 80. Maybe I can say I-80. So 10 minutes later, they come back to me. Hey, what's it doing out there, McGraw? Well, I'm out here on Nothing's coming. So at the end of this shift, I go back in the studio, and Gary Saddlemeyer sits me down and says, hey, you're great. You show up on time. The waste paper baskets are always clean. You can work here for as long as you want, but you can't be on the radio. I said, why not? He says, well, and I'm like, because I stutter? And he says, yeah. I'm like, oh. Well, that's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
So I wasn't smart enough to realize I couldn't do it. So at this point, I go and I find a speech pathologist. And for the first time as a 25-year-old, I sit down with a speech pathologist. And she explains to me stuttering, why I stutter, why people stutter, why Mel Tillis could sing and not stutter, but when he talks, he stuttered. And I learned that Ken Venturi, the golf analyst for CBS, had a stutter. John Stossel at ABC stuttered. Bill Walton stuttered. All these famous broadcasters had stuttered. And so she broke me down and filmed me. I had tics. I would raise my eyebrows when words wouldn't come out. And she would play with there was a headphone device where it would delay what you're hearing. So when you have headphones on, you end up screaming, right? Well, this would delay what you're hearing.
Oh.
So it would draw out your syllables, right? Things like that. And she would teach me tricks of the trades, like I couldn't say Hank Aaron at the time. So she would say, don't say A. Don't say Hank Aaron. You say H. Call it H. Say Hank Aaron. And
I see.
Trick the listener.
Okay.
There was another trick where she did, which was brilliant. So, and I don't know if we have time. Do we have time? We
don't, but you got another 5 or 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me hold them. Let me get more of this story. I know you have a great Nancy Grace story I want to get to
I've got
as
a
well.
Nancy Grace story.
All right. We got a Nancy Grace story.
I don't want to hijack your show, but this is probably the most interesting it's been in months.
We will hit that Nancy. Hey, man, our ratings are just fine. We've got more coming up next.
Call Mundo, 913-408-7957. Now on 95.7 FM.
We're continuing on a Friday with McGraw Millhaven, KTRS in St. Louis. He was telling the longest story I've ever heard, so we've got to take a break and get back to the story. Yeah,
you got 4 hours. So to finish up the speech pathologist.
Yes.
Explained to me that when you read, you don't stutter as much as when you talk ad lib.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 weeks go by, traffic guy doesn't show up. There's no one else at the radio station. They're like, okay, here you go again. I go out to the Dairy Queen on 90th and Dodge. I sit in the parking lot, and I write out fake accidents on my pad.
Oh, nice.
I don't care that there are accidents or not. All I care is how I sound.
Yeah.
So they come to me and I say, oh, Gary, hey, thanks a lot. We've got a busy morning out here. There's a 3-car accident on 90th and Farnham. Watch out for Interstate 80, exit 449. We've got a, injury accident with emergency vehicles standing by, so avoid that at all costs. Okay, but it just made up accidents all morning long. And driving back to the station, I was like, well, clearly I'm fired.
Yeah.
You can't make up accidents all morning long. But I was like, but I sounded good. Mm-hmm. And I came back to the studio, and Gary Saddlemeyer said, man, that speech pathologist is fantastic. What are you doing tomorrow? Can you do traffic tomorrow and Thursday and Friday? And I was like, sure, absolutely. And that's how I got my start in radio.
So you spent a few years in Omaha, and then the move to St. Louis comes when?
99.
99.
Yeah.
Did you think if someone told you you'd spend 25 years in St. Louis, what would you have said to them?
I would have said, 1, great, and 2, that's all I ever wanted. I wanted to, and when I got to St. Louis, Jack Buck put his arm around me and said, kid, what are you chasing? And I was like, I don't know what that means. He says, don't let the job and don't let the business make you a vagabond. Find a market. He told me this in 1999. We were talking about this off the air. He told me this in 99. He said, kid, find a market and make it your own. And every time I've had a chance to leave St. Louis, that little birdie in my head says, what are you chasing? What do you want, right? If you go from St. Louis to Minneapolis to Chicago to New York, right? What are you chasing? Mm-hmm. The business has changed dramatically in the last 25 years. And so every time I've wanted to leave, I have a great life. I know where the bodies are buried. I know all the history. The audience knows me. The audience puts up with me. I have a 4-year-old daughter who's the light of my life. Why would I ever want to leave?
Yeah. And you thought,
I'm going to get fired tomorrow and call Donna and say, hey, how's that afternoons over there at KCMO?
Well, we're looking, as you well know. So take me through then potential moves. You thought about what? Denver was on your short list for a hot minute? Minneapolis?
I was offered a job in Minneapolis. I turned it down. I was offered a job in New Orleans, turned it down. I had a job in Denver, turned it down. And every time I talked to these people, I mean, there were some pretty, decent names in the industry. And they would say, what's interesting is that in any profession, when you want a job, right, mm-hmm. and they offer you a job, and they offer you whatever the salary is, and you're like, well, can I get another $2,000? Sorry, not in the budget. Can't help you. Yeah. No, this is it. Take it or leave it. When they offer you a job and you turn them down,
yeah.
Okay, what is it going to take? All right, how about another $10,000? How about another $20,000, right? Mm-hmm. All right, look, this is it. This is my final offer, $35,000 more than what you want. And you're like, I don't think you get it. I said no. It wasn't about the money. It's not about the money. So it's so interesting. It's like dating a girl.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When you say no to the girl can't handle it. What do you mean no? I'm the one who says no.
Yes.
But when you want to date a girl, you're like, do you want to go on a date with me? No. Okay. Right?
Yes.
I mean, it's that. So
ego drives a lot of it.
Yeah, so it was one of those things. What do you mean? What do you mean you're turning me down? I offer jobs. I don't get turned down.
Yeah, I'm Minneapolis. I'm Denver.
Right.
You don't in St. Louis turn me down.
Right. Yeah. So it was one of those. So 25 years. I'll go for as long as I can go, and then it's a crazy business, but it's been a ride.
So the Nancy Grace story.
Yeah.
McGraw Millhaven, KTRS in St. Louis. What is the Nancy Grace story?
So. And I don't think I've ever told this part of this story on the air. I'll tell it because there's not enough people. There's different people listening here in Kansas City than in St. Louis. So it was right after Tot Mom. The big Tot Mom case had ended. And Nancy Grace was looking for her next whatever. And there was a tragic shooting in St. Louis where this man, Chris Coleman, wakes up one day and finds his 2 boys dead, shot, killed in their house. And the mother's shot and killed in the house. And so Nancy Grace, somehow somebody gets a hold of me and says, do you want to go on Nancy Grace and be the local reporter for Nancy Grace's show? I said, fine. So we go day 1, day 2, day 3, and I'm starting to get a weird feeling about this because she's not asking me any new questions. Right? She's asking me the same questions. Well, day 1, day 2, day 3, they say that they're focusing on the husband And the husband's not really answering the questions, and he said one thing, but it was another thing, and so all of a sudden it's looking like the husband's guilty.
Mm-hmm.
So the Major Case Squad says and releases to the public, we have someone of interest. We're stopping our investigation, but we're not going to arrest anybody. Excuse me. So I said, so the producers call me up that day and say, what's the news of the day? And I'm like, well, the prosecutors and the cops are saying this. And the producer said, well, you can't say that on TV. You can't say that. Why don't you say this? And I was like, oh, well, that's weird. Okay. So I was like, all right, I'll see you tonight. Okay, fine. So with that, do you remember a guy named Charles Jaco? He was on CNN for years. He covered the first Desert Storm. He was friendly. He was working at the station at the time, a big national correspondent.
Okay.
He comes up to me and he says, you know what you should do? I said, what's that? He says, you're going to be stuck doing this show for the next 6 months because they're going to invite you every night and ask you the same questions. He says, you should go out in a blaze of glory. I was like, what does that mean? He says, you should go and just rip her on her own show.
Oh, this is good.
So I was like, huh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
That's an interesting take.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Because I kind of didn't really know Nancy Grace. I'd kind of vaguely heard Tot Mom, but, you know. Mm-hmm. And then when I was going on, these people came out of the woodwork like, I saw you on Nancy Grace last night. So I go, so somebody says to me, you can't go on national TV and start ripping a national host. Your boss will get angry with you. So I go into my general manager and I said, I'm thinking about, blowing up Nancy Grace's show tonight. And the man says, well, if you don't, you're a blankety, blankety, blank, blank, blank.
If you don't.
If I don't, right.
Very
so
good.
I was like, oh, okay. So I get on the show, and she asks me a ridiculously stupid question. And the clip is on YouTube. If you go on YouTube, it's 8 million views. And she asked me the question, and I say, basically, you're asking me the wrong question. This isn't the question. Why aren't you asking me the right question? This is the right question. I'm embarrassed to be on this show. And she says, well, cut his mic. And I'm like, thank you very much. Have a good day. And the reaction, what was so bizarre about this was the people who loved Nancy Grace weren't as scary as the people who hated Nancy Grace. So the people who love Nancy Grace said, you're a loser. Your career's in, and nobody knows who you are. How dare you pick on Nancy Grace, right? You're a jerk. I hate you.
Yeah.
The people who hated Nancy Grace would email me, call me, whatever. Oh, my God, I've been waiting 5 years for somebody to tell off Nancy Grace. You finally did it. You're my hero. I'm like, what are you doing watching this woman for 5 years? What is going on with you?
Mark, I just put the clip in the 9:45 break. It's a 36-second clip. And by the way, you think I'm lying. You're fudging those numbers a little bit.
Well,
242,000.
No, there's another one with 1 million.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I found the one with 200. I mean, it's a big number.
All
right. Mark, you got that clip? Let me know when you got it. We'll play it off your end so I can hear McGraw getting kicked off of Nancy Grace. This is 15 years ago. Does that sound right?
Seems like yesterday, but yeah, okay.
Now, where was the woman, McGraw Millhaven, KTRS Radio, joining us out of St. Louis? Where's the stripper hail from?
Nancy, you're missing the whole point. This show is a joke. You are a joke. You are protecting the prosecutor. The cops have already said they have the evidence. They've already said they have the person. Every other person would have been charged. Why aren't you asking the question, why isn't the prosecutor bringing charges against whoever the cops believe did this? You're missing the whole point, Nancy.
Okay, McGraw
I'm embarrassed
Millhaven.
to be on this show.
Well,
Yeah.
sir, you're off. Cut his mic.
Thank you.
You're off. Well, sir, you're off.
What was so funny about it was, so I'm in the studio and the cameraman, right? The cameraman's holding the camera. And as I'm doing this, he sticks his head like around the camera stays stationary.
Yeah.
And he sticks his head around the camera and looks at me like, what in the world? What in the world is this guy? Like he couldn't believe what he was seeing through his lens.
Oh.
He had to see it for himself to see what in the, and I was like this, I'm going out in a blaze of glory.
Oh, you did. That's great. I may use that as a drop on the show with the Bill O'Reilly. We'll do it live. Oh, that's right up there,
So
man.
that's going to be on my gravestone, I
That's
guess.
great. McGraw Millhaven, KTRS in St. Louis. Hey, enjoy Nebraska this weekend. Enjoy the game tomorrow. Thanks for being here.
Pete Mundo, next time I meet you in the Hamptons, I'll be sure to completely blow you off. I'll lock the door and make sure he doesn't come in.
They still allow you out there? You're allowed to go back?
I'll call the authorities. Some guy named Pete Mundo's coming in.
Oh, no, don't do that, please.
Hey, you know what? I'm proud of you. You're doing great. We talk all the time on the air, off the air. You're a true talent in this business. Keep doing what you're doing. Get out there and own Kansas City. I saw you last night at the game. Everyone knows who you are, so it's great stuff. Keep being you. Be the best Pete Mundo you can be. Don't try and be anybody else, but develop your own brand, which is what you're doing, and I'm really proud of you.
Thank you, man. I do consider you a mentor, so I appreciate that
See
greatly.
that? A mentor.
Yeah.
Treat me with a little more respect.
Hey, McGraw Millhaven wrapping up the show next on KCMO.